A minute ago, I was thinking that David actually followed in the tradition of William Morris, who said everything should either be beautiful or useful. If it wasn't either, you shouldn't have it and shouldn't make it and shouldn't use it. I think David followed in that tradition, and what I've been asked to do by Nika is to read part of a book that David had completed before the tragedy happened of his loss to us. His loss to us is huge, but his inspiration to us is enormous, and the value of his writings and the way that he puts things in a readable, usable and popular way, and brings home to everyone just how serious the environmental crisis is, and how everyone, by campaigning, by demanding, by working, can change minds and can change attitudes. I want to read a little bit of Pirate Enlightenment, or the Mock Kings of Madagascar. The first Greeks were all pirates. Montesquieu, The Spirit of the Laws. This is an essay about pirate kings, real and imagined. It's also about a time and place where it was very difficult to tell the difference between the two. For about 100 years, from the end of the 17th century towards the close of the next, the east coast of Madagascar was seen of a shadow play of storied pirate kings, pirate atrocities, pirate utopias, rumours of which shocked, inspired and entertained the cafe and pub-going populations of the North Atlantic world. There is absolutely no way, from our current vantage, to disentangle these accounts and establish a definitive narrative of which were true and which were not. Some clearly weren't. The great kingdom created in Madagascar by Captain Henry Every and his 10,000 pirate henchmen, which in the very first decade of the 18th century many in Europe believed was on the verge of establishing itself as one of the world's preeminent naval powers, did not actually exist. That's the opening of his book. David, thank you for what you did in your life. Thank you for the inspiration you've given us, and thank you for opening our minds to what we have to make possible in order to make possible the survival of ourselves and our planet. Thank you very much.
I'm going to read a bit more from the same book, but from the conclusion towards the end. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? So this is a fitting reading, because we've got a king here, and they're a king that's being produced for egalitarianism for all of us. So here's a little bit. It's a very common principle in Madagascar for egalitarianism to be produced, as it were, as a side effect of imaginary forms of absolute power. You should all be equal, the Marina king said, to have declared, as you're all equally my subjects. Gerard Althaba has written extensively of how this dynamic tended to work itself out in Betse Camarana villages in the colonial period. For instance, by the evocation of dead kings in mediumistic tromba ceremonies. Something like that seems to have happened with the Betsimisakara relation to the Zana Malata. Everyone was effectively equal in relation to them. Over time, this equality became more and more of a value in its own right. Finally, the fact that Zana Malata status was based on their wealth and connection with distant lands, and that this made for very little basis for differentiation between them, created a looming dilemma of legitimacy for Ratsimalaho's court. His own personal charisma seemed adequate to hold things together in his lifetime, but he seemed well aware that it would be extremely difficult to pass his position on to his children. His solution was, in the great tradition of what Marshall Salins has referred to as upwards nobility, to marry back into new sources of mysterious power from distant lands. Ratsimalaho negotiated a spectacular marriage alliance with the Saklava court of Boina, where he had himself served before as the king's assistant, so that his son and heir would be able to claim two different kinds of royal ancestry. He forbid his daughter, Betia, to sleep with other Malagasy, even apparently follow Malatta, but equally encouraged her to form relationships with European visitors at court. Both projects turned out disastrously. Matavi, the Saklava princess who became Ratsimalaho's primary wife, quickly made known her disdain